Kayla Brooks had learned to walk with her shoulders slightly hunched at the Galactic Sciences Academy. Not from shame, but from years of watching other students flinch whenever she stood at her full height. The corridors of the massive orbital station gleamed with bioluminescent panels that shifted colors based on the dominant species passing through each section. Right now, the lights burned a cautious yellow because she was approaching 3 months in her first year, and the stairs still bothered her more than she wanted to admit. Whispers followed her like a shadow as she carried her data tablets toward the restricted research wing. A group of Rilthian students pressed themselves against the far wall as she passed, their crystalline bodies tinkling with nervous energy. She wanted to tell them she wasn't dangerous, that Earth had sent its best and brightest, that humans could be trusted. But the biodampener clamped around her left wrist told a different story. Every human student wore one, a constant reminder that their bodies were considered weapons by galactic standards. The device suppressed adrenaline production, limited her natural reflexes, and broadcast her biometric data to station security every 30 seconds. Kayla had checked the regulations. No other species faced such restrictions. The research wing entrance appeared ahead, its security arch scanning everyone who passed through. Kayla had level 3 clearance for her xenobiology project, granted by Professor Mothal himself after weeks of proving she could handle delicate equipment without Deathworld clumsiness. She pulled up her digital credentials on her tablet, ready to display them as she always did. A massive insectoid form stepped directly into her path. Security guard Rawl stood nearly 8 feet tall, his chitinous armor gleaming black under the corridor lights. His compound eyes reflected her image back at her 1,000 times. Mandibles clicking in what she'd learned was irritation. He'd never liked the human students, made that clear from day one. Credentials. Rawl's voice buzzed through his translator, harsh and sharp. Kayla held up her tablet without speaking. The display showed her clearance badge, her student identification, and the timestamp proving everything was current. She'd passed through this checkpoint 17 times before without issue. Rawl's claws snatched the tablet from her hands, and she forced herself not to react to the sudden movement. Expired, he announced after barely glancing at the screen. That's not possible. Kayla kept her voice level and calm, the way the Human Student Handbook advised. The clearance renews automatically. You can verify with central administration. Rawl's mandibles spread wide, revealing the razor edges that could shear through metal. Are you questioning my assessment, Deathworlder? The few students in the corridor stopped to watch. Some pulled out personal recording devices. Kayla's heart rate increased, and she felt the biodampener activate, sending a cooling pulse through her wrist. Deep breath. Stay calm. Don't give them a reason. I'm simply asking you to check the central database, she said quietly. There must be an error in your reader. The only error is allowing your kind into this institution. Rawl stepped closer, using his size to intimidate. You primitives. Think you can walk among civilized species. Pretend you're not killers from a death planet. Kayla's hands began to shake, not from fear but from the effort of staying still. The dampener pulsed again, stronger this time. She could feel her body wanting to react, every instinct screaming at her to defend herself or retreat. But retreating would mean abandoning her research, her education, everything she'd worked for. Please just verify my clearance. Her voice came out smaller than she intended. Rawl's security baton extended with a sharp click. The weapon hummed with electromagnetic energy designed to incapacitate most species without permanent harm. He raised it slowly, deliberately. The watching students gasped, but nobody moved to intervene. Security was security. Who would challenge them? You need to learn your place, Rawl said. The baton came down across Kayla's face before she could process what was happening. Pain exploded through her cheek and jaw. She staggered sideways, dropping her data tablets. They clattered against the floor. Blood filled her mouth where her teeth had cut into her lip. The metallic taste triggered something primal. For a moment, everything stopped. Kayla stood perfectly still, hunched over slightly. One hand touching her bleeding face. The corridor had gone completely silent. Even Rawl seemed frozen, as if realizing he'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. Then Kayla's breathing changed. It became slower, deeper, more deliberate. Her hands stopped shaking and hung loose at her sides. The biodampener on her wrist began sparking, unable to regulate what was happening inside her body. She straightened to her full height, and several students scrambled backward. Her eyes were changing, the warm brown irises darkening like clouds covering the sun, the whites vanishing as her pupils dilated beyond anything the other species had ever witnessed. Within seconds, Kayla's eyes had gone completely black. No iris, no white, just endless darkness that reflected the corridor lights like volcanic glass. Station alarms began wailing. The biodampener exploded in a shower of sparks and melted circuitry. Kayla remained motionless in the center of the corridor, her black eyes fixed on Rawl. Her chest rose and fell with mechanical precision. Every muscle in her body had gone still with the predator's patience. Rawl dropped his baton. The clatter echoed like a gunshot in the silent corridor. His survival instincts, honed over millions of years of evolution, screamed at him to run. He'd made a terrible mistake. He'd hurt a human. He'd triggered something ancient and merciless. The crowd scattered in every direction. Students fled without shame, their own genetic memories warning them that they were witnessing a Deathworld predator, preparing to strike. Recording devices were abandoned, dignity forgotten. Only survival mattered now. Kayla took one step forward. Rawl stumbled backward. Somewhere in the distance, security teams were mobilizing, but they were too far away. Whatever was about to happen would be over before anyone could intervene. Her eyes remained completely black, empty of everything except purpose. Director Vorin moved faster than his aged body should have allowed. 60 years teaching at the academy had given him wisdom, but the emergency alert from Section 7 turned that wisdom into fear. A human student's biodampener had catastrophically failed. Security footage showed what happened next. He'd ordered every available guard to the scene, then immediately countermanded that order. Sending more potential threats would only make things worse. By the time he reached the corridor, a perimeter had formed at both ends. Students and faculty pressed against the barriers, trying to see what was happening. Vorin pushed through with the authority of his position. What he saw made his three hearts skip in syncopated rhythm. Kayla Brooks stood in the center of the empty space, absolutely motionless, her eyes completely black. Rawl cowered against the wall 10 feet away, all his training forgotten in the face of genuine terror. Nobody move. Vorin's voice carried across the silence. Remain exactly where you are. He'd studied Deathworld species for 40 years, knew more about human biology than most humans did. What he was witnessing was the result of attacking a species that had spent millions of years as both predator and prey. Kayla's body had flooded itself with chemicals that would kill most galactic citizens. Her adrenal glands were pumping hormones into her bloodstream at levels that should have stopped her heart. Instead, they'd turned her into something far more dangerous than the frightened student who'd walked this corridor 10 minutes ago. Kayla, Vorin spoke her name softly. "Can you hear me?" Those black eyes turned toward him. He suppressed his own instinct to flee. She was aware, he could see that much. Awareness flickered behind the darkness like distant lightning. But her higher reasoning had been overridden by something older than civilization. Something that kept her ancestors alive when massive predators stalked the African savanna. The crowd murmured nervously. Someone was crying. Vorin held up one hand for silence. He needed to think. Human students had protocols for exactly this situation. Where was the emergency contact list? Where are the other humans who could talk her down? As if summoned by thought, Derek Walsh broke through the security line. The guard tried to stop him, but he moved with the easy confidence of someone who understood the danger and accepted it anyway. He walked straight toward Kayla, ignoring Vorin's warning gesture, ignoring the gasps from the crowd, ignoring every sensible instinct that said to run. "Hey, Kayla," Derek's voice was calm, conversational, as if they'd just met in the cafeteria. "Bad day, huh?" Her black eyes tracked him, but she didn't move. Derek stopped about 6 feet away, close enough to be heard clearly, but far enough to give her space. He sat down cross-legged on the floor. The casual posture seemed to confuse her. Predators didn't sit. Threats didn't make themselves vulnerable. "Remember when I told you about my first year here?" Derek continued talking. About the three guys who thought a human would be an easy target? Yeah, my eyes went black too. Scared the hell out of everyone. Took me almost an hour to come back. Kayla's breathing remained steady and slow, but something in her posture shifted slightly. Derek noticed and kept talking, his voice a lifeline back to rational thought. The worst part wasn't the adrenaline crash afterward, though that sucked. It was the guilt, knowing I'd scared people who didn't deserve it, knowing they'd see me differently forever. He paused. But you know what? Some of them understood. Professor Mothal pulled me aside after, told me that every species has survival mechanisms. Ours are just more visible than most. Vorin watched in fascination. Derek was doing exactly what human psychology demanded, providing context, familiarity, safety, reminding Kayla that she was a student at an academy, not a hunted animal fighting for survival. Slowly, incrementally, her body was receiving the message that the threat had passed. You're at the Galactic Sciences Academy, Derek said, Section 7 Research Corridor. It's Tuesday afternoon. You're heading to work on your project about crystalline life forms. Remember? The one Professor Mothal said might revolutionize our understanding of non-carbon biology. Color began creeping back into Kayla's eyes. Tiny rings of brown appearing at the edges like sunrise breaking through night. Her breathing hitched, became less mechanical, more human. Derek saw the change and smiled. There you are. Welcome back. Kayla's legs buckled. Derek was moving before she started falling, catching her before she hit the floor. The crowd exhaled collectively. Some cheered, others just sagged with relief. Vorin signaled for the medical team that had been waiting at the perimeter. They rushed forward with equipment designed for human physiology. Raul still pressed against the wall, his compound eyes locked on the collapsed human. Vorin turned to face him. His normally gentle expression hardened into something cold and administrative. Security Chief Raul, you are hereby relieved of duty pending formal investigation. Striking a student violates every protocol we have. Striking a human student demonstrates ignorance that borders on criminal negligence. Vorin's voice carried across the corridor, making sure everyone heard. Surrender your credentials immediately. Raul's mandibles clicked frantically, trying to form words, excuses, justifications. Vorin held up one hand. Save it for the disciplinary board. You'll need better explanations than I expect you have. The medical team loaded Kayla onto a stretcher. Derek walked beside her, holding her hand. She was conscious but exhausted. Her body had burned through energy reserves at an impossible rate. She'd need days to fully recover, weeks to process the psychological impact. As they carried her away, Vorin pulled out his communication device. He had several difficult calls to make. Earth's diplomatic corps needed to be informed. The Academy board needed a full report. And most concerning, he needed to contact the other institutions across the galaxy that hosted human students. What happened here today would spread through the networks within hours. Reactions would vary from sympathy to calls for human expulsion from all galactic institutions. But first, he needed to review the security footage completely. Needed to document everything. Because Raul's career wasn't the only thing at stake. The entire future of human integration into galactic society might have just been decided in this corridor. And Vorin intended to make sure that future was built on truth, not fear. The disciplinary board convened in the Academy's formal hearing chamber, a circular room designed to give equal weight to all participants. Kayla sat in the designated witness section, Derek beside her for moral support. Across the room, Raul occupied the respondent's chair, his compound eyes downcast. The 5 board members represented different species and academic departments, each chosen for their impartiality. Director Vorin presented the evidence methodically. Security footage showed everything. Raul blocking Kayla's path, the escalating confrontation, the baton strike, and her subsequent crisis response. Medical records documented her injuries and the dangerous levels of stress hormones her body had produced. Student testimony confirmed the events. There was no ambiguity about what had happened. The question before this board is not guilt, stated Board Chair Limvier, an elderly scholar whose species lived for 3 centuries. The footage establishes that conclusively. We are here to determine appropriate consequences and prevent future incidents. Rawls' defense representative stood, a sleek reptilian lawyer who specialized in labor disputes. My client acknowledges his actions were improper. However, we must consider the context. Human students present unique challenges for security personnel. The Academy provides inadequate training for managing Deathworld species. Guard Rawl acted on incomplete information and institutional failures. Kayla felt Derek tense. Beside her, the lawyer was trying to shift blame to the Academy itself. Technically not wrong, but missing the fundamental point that Rawl had struck an unarmed student without provocation. Miss Brooks, Lim VA addressed her directly. You have the right to provide a victim impact statement. Would you like to do so now? Kayla stood, her legs steady despite nervousness. She'd spent the past 3 days thinking about what she wanted to say. Derek had warned her that anger would be justified, that demanding harsh punishment was her right, but that wasn't what she wanted. I was scared, she began. When Guard Rawl hit me, I felt helpless. I knew if I defended myself, I'd be labeled as the dangerous human everyone expected. So I tried to stay still, tried to stay calm. My body had other ideas. She paused, gathering her thoughts. What happened to me? The black eyes, the loss of control. That's what millions of years of evolution created to keep my ancestors alive. It's not something I choose. It's something that happens when my brain decides I'm in lethal danger. Guard Rawl triggered that response by attacking me. However, Kayla continued, I don't think punishing him harshly serves anyone. He acted on prejudice and fear. The same prejudice and fear that created the biodampener program. That makes students avoid me in hallways. That treats human students like walking weapons instead of people. The board members leaned forward, clearly not expecting this direction. What I want is change, Kayla said. Real change. I want security personnel trained properly. I want human students treated with the same respect as everyone else. I want Guard Rawl to understand what he did wrong and why. Punishment without education just creates resentment. I'd rather have an ally than an enemy. She sat down, heart pounding. Derek squeezed her shoulder supportively. Across the room, Rawl's mandibles clicked rapidly, his version of shocked silence. The board deliberated for 30 minutes. When they returned, Lim VA addressed the chamber. We find Guard Rawl guilty of assault, protocol violations, and conduct unbecoming Academy security. He is hereby stripped of his security credentials and banned from working with Deathworld species in any capacity. Rawl slumped in his chair, his career effectively over. However, Lim VA continued. In consideration of Miss Brooks' statement and the institutional failures that contributed to this incident, we are offering Guard Rawl an alternative to immediate termination. He may choose to undergo comprehensive retraining, including cultural sensitivity courses and direct mentorship with human students. Upon successful completion, he may apply for reinstatement in a non-security role. The decision sent murmurs through the observation gallery. It was both punishment and opportunity. Exactly what Kayla had advocated for. Weeks passed. Kayla returned to her classes and research. The atmosphere had shifted noticeably. Fewer students avoided her. More approached with genuine curiosity. Professor Mothal invited her to co-author a paper on her crystalline life forms project, a significant honor for a first-year student. Tresh became a regular study partner. Their conversations ranged from academic topics to personal experiences. They admitted they'd lost a sibling to a predator on a frontier world, had transferred that fear to all Deathworld species without distinguishing between actual threats and people trying to live their lives. Your compassion toward Rawl made me question everything, Tresh said one evening in the library, their skin displaying thoughtful silver. You had every right to demand maximum punishment. Instead, you asked for understanding. That's not something a mindless predator does. Humans aren't mindless, Kayla replied. We're adaptable. That's our actual survival trait. We can be dangerous when threatened, but we choose cooperation when possible. Evolution favored the humans who could work together, not just the ones who could fight. Their study group expanded. Derek recruited several students from different species, each sharing information about their homeworlds, evolutionary pressures, survival adaptations. Kayla discovered that most species had some kind of crisis response. Rilthians could shatter into shards and reassemble. Vothran's people could hibernate for decades when resources were scarce. Even Tresha species could flood their bodies with toxins that made them poisonous to predators. We all carry our survival mechanisms, she told the group. Humans are just more visible and scary looking, but we're not unique in being dangerous when cornered. One afternoon, Kayla encountered Raul in a corridor. He was wearing a student badge now, enrolled in the cultural training program. When he saw her, he stopped and performed a formal bow of apology, his species' highest gesture of respect. Miss Brooks, I owe you more than words can express. His translator carried genuine remorse. You showed me mercy I did not deserve. I am trying to become worthy of that mercy. Just learn and grow, Kayla said. That's all anyone can do. As she walked away, Derek fell in a step beside her. You know what's amazing? 3 months ago, you were the isolated human everyone avoided. Now you're basically a walking diplomatic mission. I just want to do my research and graduate, Kayla protested. Too late, Derek grinned. You're a symbol now. Might as well embrace it. The Unity Festival had been an academy tradition for 70 years, a celebration where students showcased their home worlds and cultures. This year carried extra significance because attendance had tripled. News of Kayla's incident had drawn attention from across the sector. Many came to see if humans were really as dangerous or as reasonable as the competing narrative suggested. Kayla stood in front of the Earth exhibit, answering questions from a steady stream of curious visitors. The display showed images of Earth's diverse ecosystems, from frozen tundra to scorching deserts, from deep oceans to mountain peaks. Many aliens struggled to comprehend how one species could survive such environmental extremes. Your planet has predators larger than most starships, a small floating species asked, their translation device giving them a tinny voice. How did your ancestors not go extinct? Cooperation and tool use. Kayla explained for the 20th time that day. Humans are persistence hunters. We're not the fastest or strongest, but we can outlast almost anything. We run prey to exhaustion over hours or days, and we work in groups, sharing information and resources. She pulled up an image of ancient humans hunting. See how they're signaling to each other? Communicating complex strategies without words? That's what made us successful. Not individual strength, but collective intelligence. Derek appeared beside her carrying 2 drinks. You've been at this for 4 hours straight. Take a break. I'm fine. Kayla accepted the drink anyway. Her throat was getting dry. You're playing ambassador again, Derek teased. At least you're good at it. Across the festival hall, Tresh was giving a presentation about their homeworld's bioluminescent forests, their skin shifting through vibrant colors as they described the ecosystem. They become confident in recent weeks, no longer hiding their past prejudices, but using them as teaching moments. Several reform protesters had joined their study group, each bringing unique perspectives. The festival continued peacefully until mid-afternoon. Kayla noticed a disturbance near the Rilthian exhibit. Raised voices, aggressive posturing. Security moved to intervene, but the situation escalated quickly. Someone shoved someone else. A drink was thrown. Then, she saw the pattern. Similar disruptions were occurring at multiple exhibits simultaneously. This wasn't random. This was coordinated. Her enhanced human pattern recognition kicked in. She counted at least 8 agitators spread through the crowd, all wearing student badges but moving with purpose rather than curiosity. Derek, she grabbed his arm. Something's wrong. He followed her gaze, saw what she saw. Extremists trying to provoke incidents. One of the agitators turned toward the Earth exhibit, a tall humanoid with aggressive body language. They carried a container of some dark liquid. Kayla's heart rate increased. She forced herself to breathe slowly. Stay calm. Don't give them what they want. The agitator approached directly. Here's what I think of Deathworld scum. They shouted loud enough for everyone nearby to hear, then threw the liquid straight at Kayla's face. Cold liquid splashed across her skin. Instinct screamed danger. Her vision started to darken at the edges, the adrenal response beginning to activate. Around her, the crowd went silent. Everyone who'd seen the viral footage knew what was about to happen. Recording devices appeared. capturing every moment. Kayla felt it building, the darkness creeping in her eyes. Time seemed to slow. She could see the agitator's satisfied smirk, see security rushing toward them but moving through molasses, see Derek's concerned expression, see Tresh pushing through the crowd, see hundreds of eyes watching, waiting. This was the moment. This was what the extremists wanted, proof that humans were dangerous, uncontrollable, violent. One incident to undo months of progress. She could feel her body preparing, muscles tensing, reflexes sharpening, the black eyes coming. No. Kayla closed her eyes, focused on her breathing, remembered Derek's voice pulling her back, remembered Tresh's apology, remembered Rawls' bow, remembered every conversation, every connection, every moment of understanding she'd built. She thought about her ancestors, not the hunters, but the ones who'd chosen cooperation over conflict, who'd built communities instead of just surviving, with tremendous effort, fighting against millions of years of evolution. She forced the response down, pushed back against the darkness, chose control over instinct. When she opened her eyes, they were brown, just brown, tired and sad, but completely human. She looked at the agitator. We're better than this. Both of us. The agitator's smirk faltered. They'd expected violence or fear, not disappointment, not compassion. Security reached them, gently but firmly escorting them away. Similar scenes played out across the festival hall as the coordinated disruption fell apart. Director Vorin appeared on the main stage, his voice amplified across the hall. Today we witnessed an attempt to divide us through fear and provocation. It failed, not because of security intervention, but because our students chose understanding over reaction. I'm proud of every person here who refused to let hatred win. The crowd erupted in applause, students from dozens of species cheering. Kayla felt Derek's arm around her shoulders. Tresh pushed through to hug her, their skin bright yellow with joy. You did it, Tresh said. You proved everything we've been learning. Humans can control their responses, can choose peace. Barely, Kayla admitted, shaking slightly from the effort. That was the hardest thing I've ever done. That's what makes it meaningful. Derek said, easy choices don't define character. In the following days, footage of Kayla's restraint spread even faster than the original incident. News networks analyzed it. Scholars debated it. Governments referenced it in policy discussions. The full picture of humanity finally emerged. Dangerous when threatened, but capable of choosing compassion. The Academy received applications from human students across Earth, enrollment requests from dozens of institutions, invitations for cultural exchange programs. Kayla's choice to maintain control had opened doors that violence would have sealed forever. She still wore no biodampener, no restrictions, just trust, and she'd proven that trust was deserved. Kayla woke to the sterile white ceiling of the Academy Medical Bay. Her body felt like she'd run a marathon while being electrocuted. Every muscle ached with the deep soreness that came from being pushed far beyond normal limits. She tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. A wave of nausea forced her back down onto the pillows. Easy there. Derek's voice came from her left. He sat in a chair beside her bed, looking like he hadn't slept. Your body just did something it's really not supposed to do. You need to recover slowly. Memories came flooding back. Rawls' face, the baton strike, the taste of blood. Then everything got fuzzy. She remembered darkness creeping in her vision, remembered feeling like she was watching herself from a distance, remembered Derek's voice pulling her back from somewhere very far away. How long was I out? Her voice came out rough and scratchy. About 3 hours in full crisis mode. Another 6 hours sleeping it off. Derek held up a water container with a straw. She drank gratefully. The footage went viral. 17 star systems have already picked up the story. You're kind of famous now, Kayla groaned. Famous for losing control and scaring everyone. Famous for being assaulted by security and surviving what should have hospitalized you. Derek corrected. The narrative is actually on your side. Most people are angry at Rawl, not afraid of you. Well, they're probably a little afraid of you, but also impressed. The door to her room slid open. Director Varin entered carrying a data tablet and looking exhausted. His skin had faded to a pale gray that suggested stress. He approached her bed slowly, as if afraid sudden movements might startle her. "Miss Brooks, I owe you an apology on behalf of this institution." His voice carried genuine remorse. "What happened to you should never have occurred. Our security protocols failed catastrophically." "It wasn't your fault," Kayla said quietly. "It absolutely was." Vorin sat down heavily in another chair. "We've been treating human students like potential threats instead of vulnerable young people far from home. The biodampener program was supposed to make everyone feel safer. Instead, it created a false sense of security and prevented you from regulating your own stress responses naturally." He pulled up something on his tablet. "I've been reviewing incident reports from the past 5 years. Do you know how many times human students have actually harmed anyone at this academy? 0. Not once. Meanwhile, there have been 47 documented cases of discrimination, harassment, and now assault against human students." Kayla hadn't known the numbers. She'd assumed her experiences were isolated incidents. "Effective immediately, the biodampener program is suspended." Vorin continued. "We're also implementing mandatory training for all security personnel on Deathworld species biology. Anyone who can't pass the certification will be reassigned, and I'm personally recommending that you be given full victim status and support." "What about Raul?" Kayla asked. "Facing disciplinary board tomorrow, assault charges, protocol violations. He'll almost certainly lose his position." Vorin studied her face. "You'll be asked to provide a victim impact statement if you're feeling up to it." Kayla nodded slowly. She didn't feel victimized exactly. Mostly she felt tired and confused. The black-eyed state had been terrifying because she'd been aware but unable to control herself, like being a passenger in her own body while something ancient drove. Derek's device chirped. He glanced at it and smiled. "Going to want to see this." He turned the screen toward her. Social media feeds scrolled past, filled with messages of support from students across the galaxy. Many were from other human students sharing their own experiences with discrimination. Others were from alien students apologizing for past treatment. One post had been shared millions of times. It was from a Rilthian student who'd watched the whole incident. The post read, "Today I watched a human get struck by security for no reason. I watched her eyes go black. I ran because I was afraid, but now I'm ashamed. She didn't hurt anyone. She stood there and fought for control while we abandoned her. Humans aren't the dangerous ones. Our prejudice is..." "People are starting to understand," Derek said. "This might actually change things." Over the next 2 days, Kayla remained in medical observation while her body fully recovered. Visitors came in a steady stream. Professor Mothal brought her research notes and assured her the project was secure. Other human students stopped by to share their own stories. She wasn't alone in her experiences. They'd all faced varying degrees of discrimination. But the most surprising visitor was a young alien named Tresh. Their species had bilateral symmetry and chromatophore skin that shifted colors based on emotion. Right now, they were displaying deep purple, which Derek quietly translated as embarrassment. "I was one of the protesters at your lecture last week." Tresh's voice was soft. "I held a sign saying humans should be quarantined. I believed you were all dangerous." Kayla remembered the protest. A small group had disrupted her xenobiology presentation. She'd asked security to remove them rather than engage. Now she wished she'd tried talking instead. "I watched the footage of what happened to you," Tresh continued, their skin flickering between purple and blue. "I saw how hard you fought not to hurt anyone, even after being attacked, and I realized I was wrong. I'm sorry." "Thank you for telling me," Kayla said. "Would you?" Tresh's colors shifted to nervous green. "Would you be willing to talk sometime? I want to understand. Really understand. Not just assume." Derek was grinning. Kayla caught his expression and understood. This was how change happened, not through grand gestures, but through individual connections. One conversation at a time. "I'd like that," she told Tresh. "Maybe after I'm released from medical." Tresh's colors shifted to warm yellow. Relief and gratitude. "Yes, thank you. I'll message you." After Tresh left, Derek leaned back in his chair. "See? You're already making a difference. I just want to finish my degree without anyone hitting me." Kalis said. Well, yeah, that too, Derek laughed. But maybe we can aim a little higher.